Mastery powered by SellerApp Day 3, and I'm and I'll be your host for this session. First 2 days have been intense and first 2 days have been wonderful. All thanks for everyone who's watching right now. We did not expect the amount of love and support that you all have given us, and we're thankful for it. For those of you who still have not registered for the event, you still have a couple of days left. Make sure to go in the link and click on the link that will let you register for the event, because we have additional perks for everyone who registers for the event. The additional perks includes workshops, and we have goodie bag that goes out at the end of the event with exclusive discounts from all our partners. So let us understand what has happened in the last 2 days. First, we spoke about how you can scale your D2C brand and how you can be a successful D2C brand from some legends such as Vinit Kumar, who is the CEO of Native, which was recently acquired by P&G. And then we also heard from Dr. Vaidya's founders, Arjun and Trisha Vaidya, and our in-house specialist, Ram Menon, who spoke about the tools that you need to make sure that your D2C business is headed to the right direction. On day 2, we spoke about how you can be cash flow positive for Q4. So Q4 does get a little bit more expensive compared to your last quarters, and you need to find channels for the additional cash flow and how you can be cash flow positive in this Q4. So we had David Goldman from Camify, we had Claudia from Hello Tax talking about VAT compliances and how you can save money on taxes. In today's session, we are going to be talking about the future of marketing off and on Amazon. So of course, advertising on Amazon has been one of the biggest tools and has evolved in the past couple of years. Amazon has come up with different types of ads in this last couple of years as well, and SellerApp themselves have managed more than 8 million of ads spent. So you can imagine how big Amazon advertising is. However, Amazon advertising may not suffice anymore because the competition on Amazon has risen. A lot of categories have become saturated. So what do you do then? You have to take your advertising away from Amazon and look at different channels. And that's why we have Jamie here with us today, who's going to be talking about AI in marketing, innovation in marketing, social media marketing, and the future of marketing, which is really important if you want to stay in the current trend of marketing. So let's welcome Jamie, everyone.
Of Amazon Mastery. And what I'd like to talk to you about today is using your Amazon brand to build a brand outside of Amazon. And the reason for this is pretty clear. And I want to show you a couple of statistics first. So these are statistics that I found around 2021 market share of the top 10 US retail e-commerce companies. And you can see from that market share data that Amazon represents really just a little more than 40% of the total e-commerce market. And that's a lot, to be sure. But it also goes to show that there's a lot to be had outside of the Amazon marketplace. And that Amazon marketplace is not just a small share of the total market, but it is also not the most profitable part of the market. Amazon fees can be fairly high, and so direct sellers sometimes have an advantage from a profitability standpoint versus what you get on Amazon. So let me walk through a couple of additional facts on this. So just to give you an idea of that, over the last year alone, cost per click advertising on Amazon as an overall platform has increased by 50% year on year. So that means that one of the key ways that you're driving traffic to your Amazon store has gone up by 50% year on year. And conversion rates have probably gone up a little bit in that same time period, but they haven't gone up by 50%. So your cost to serve Amazon is steadily increasing. So it means that for 2 reasons, you want to be looking outside of Amazon for additional opportunities for your brand. Reason number 1 is that, simply said, you've got a much bigger market opportunity when you're not just looking at Amazon, but when you're looking off of Amazon. Reason number 2, it helps you from a profitability standpoint. So how can Amazon's 40% of market share help you service the other 60%? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's where the innovation really happens for brand marketers. And there are a couple of different approaches that I'd like to suggest you can take to this. Number 1 approach is the old waterfall approach. And the old waterfall approach was, let's define your target, define your message, buy media against that target, and then go to market with it. But it was a very steady, methodical approach. In some cases, you had a lot of data in that process, but not always. If you were defining your target, you might do concept and use tests or some other form of testing to validate that the target was interested in your product. And then when you would actually define the message and test the message, you could test the messaging again with concept testing, and then you'd go to market with your product. A more interesting way of going to market in today's time is what I would call an agile approach. And that is a little less about trying to determine your market and your message and your details around that really crisply up front, but instead using the media to help you understand how your message can improve over time and to help define your target for your product. And so let me walk you through what that sort of agile approach looks like. And then based on that, we can go further into it. So this agile approach that I am referring to really comes down to 3 different distinct phases. And the first phase of the agile approach that I would like to talk about is the so-called testing phase. But what it will be followed by is by 2 additional phases. The second phase being the training phase and the third phase being the scaling phase. And the entire principle behind this is that we've moved into an era where there are so many different absolutely small, tiny micro segments of markets where your product can be much more strongly appealing than into a mass market segment. And so what you want to do is use the machine learning that's available on most of the advertising platforms that are out there in order to find those discrete micro segments and ideally provide them with a message that is exactly targeted to them. And you want to use that using what you've already built on Amazon. So let me talk through that first phase. And the first phase is what I call the testing phase. And here what you're trying to do is, although I'm going to be espousing an idea around really using an algorithmic approach to resolving who you should be targeting and what message you should be targeting them with. In the testing phase, you're not going to have sufficient data in order to be training these display and other advertising platforms. So what you'll want to do at this stage is use what you've already built on your Amazon platform, the knowledge you already have, in order to start to train the pixels that you want to use later on in order to mass scale your brand off of Amazon. And so there's a couple of ways to do that in the testing phase. And here in the testing phase, the first thing you want to do before you do anything else is make sure that the website that you're going to be selling direct from has all of the appropriate pixels in terms of future advertising vehicles that you would want to be using. So obviously Google and Facebook and Microsoft advertising, and also some other ones to consider would be Quantcast, and potentially the Amazon DSP pixel as well, which we'll talk about in a bit. And what we want to do is get those set up before we even start this approach in the testing phase. And this objective of the testing phase now is to hit 25 conversions and to do so in as short a period of time as possible. So a couple of things that you can do when you don't have this really well built out pixel pool of conversions in order to drive traffic to your website that you know is going to be highly qualified is to actually start using your Amazon ASINs to train and fuel that traffic on your website. And you can do that in a number of ways. The first way that I'd suggest is Amazon DSP, where Amazon has, I believe they call it an extrinsic product, where what they can do with their DSP is you can actually target folks who have gone to your ASIN and send them to your website. And you could do that with a discrete offer that quite frankly, you might not be offering on Amazon. And so that gives you a bit of a heads up or a head start in terms of being able to drive conversions on the Amazon platform. But the other next part of that is starting to really focus on bottom of the funnel brand advertising. And so if you have done a successful job of building your brand on Amazon, the chances are that you're going to see a lot of people searching for your brand off of Amazon as well. So capture those searches, make sure you're utilizing them in order to drive really qualified traffic to your website. And the real objective of this entire testing phase is to spend a little in order to get a lot of insight in terms of who the converters are on your website. The third approach I would use here is a pretty simple one, and that is incentivize people who have already bought your product to register on your new website. And do that and then set up the registration page on your website as a conversion event with your different pixels. And by doing that, and if you can provide a strong enough incentive, and it doesn't necessarily have to be money back or anything like that. It could just be a promise of extraordinary customer support. But if you can get enough people registering their product on your website, and then in combination with that, you're advertising and retargeting people who visited Amazon ASINs and sending them to your website, and you're covering the very bottom of the funnel with branded search terms and owning those branded search terms to send them to your website, you're going to quickly find that you're fueling your website with some really high quality traffic. And that high quality traffic, if you've already equipped it with the website with the right pixels for Facebook and for Google and for Microsoft advertising and for Amazon and for Quantcast and for other DSP vehicles, as you've informed those pixels are starting to get an idea of what that audience should look like, that when you want to go to a full training phase, which is the next phase, where you are really going to start to unleash the power of the algorithm in order to further define your audience and use the digital advertising platforms that you're looking at in order to expand your brand. Phase 2 is the training phase, and here the objective is to take all of that learning that you've pushed against the pixels in terms of training them with really strong, relevant audiences who want to buy your product. And you want to now get the pixels themselves to be generating broader audiences that the machine learning and the different advertising platforms can leverage. And so here, there's really just a few great platforms that I think do this phenomenally well. One would be Facebook, and that one is the one that I'm going to refer to the most, but Google has a smart advertising vehicle that offers some scalability in this realm as well, although I haven't seen quite the return on ad spend that you see with Facebook. And then there are some more sophisticated DSP products, products like Quantcast, although I don't know if you'd call it a full DSP or a DSP product per se, but another display advertising vehicle that could also be of help to you in this area. And what you're doing in this phase is you're trying to, as quickly as possible, get a solid number of, and in the case of Facebook, they even tell you what this is, 50 conversions in 1 week against a particular ad campaign on your site. So that's why earlier what I said was you wanted to develop 25 before you went into this more broad scaled scaling, because that's going to make this next phase a lot easier. So if you did 25 over 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 25 conversions in the testing phase, it's going to be fairly simple to get 50 conversions and exit the training phase of this next approach when you're on Facebook. And the key to this training phase is going to be to actually throw a bit of the traditional marketing textbook out of the window. And the reason why I say that is because the traditional marketing approach was you narrowly define your target market, and then you provide them with a piece of advertising that specifically hits them and hits them really well, and then you essentially spray and pray, and you provide, you do mass advertising, and ideally you would target it at the right time. And if you knew seasonality trends, or if you knew certain periods where there was a higher likelihood of a buyer buying your product. But in the case of what I'm going to suggest actually you don't want to do that. And it's not actually that you don't want to do that. It's that what I'm suggesting is going to enable machines to do it in real time, much faster, and much more in a much more sophisticated manner than you ever could. So essentially what I'm going to suggest is this. It's a simple approach of, if you're setting up a campaign on Facebook, set up one campaign on Facebook, one ad set on Facebook. Do not delineate audiences at all on Facebook. So you're going to leave it with no restrictions in terms of who you target, who you don't target. So I am actually absolutely suggesting that you combine your retargeting audience with your prospecting audience. And what you're going to then do is take your existing advertising assets, and hopefully, especially with Facebook, my recommendation is to use as many of the varied ad types as possible, and then put them all into one ad set, targeting all audiences, all phases or parts of the funnel, if you will. And the entire objective here is to drive through 50 conversions as quickly as possible. And the reason why you don't want to do what has been done for decades, where you would potentially look at having very granular audiences, test advertising in granular audiences, and then see what audiences worked and double down on those audiences, is because Facebook is doing that for you. And they're doing that in real time with a heck of a lot of machine learning, and they have signals that you simply don't have access to, even with the immense number of audiences that Facebook offers. So what I've seen is that this kind of broad approach and this broad learning approach can really help you scale and get through those 50 conversions that Facebook suggests in order to train its algorithm, and will get you the lowest possible cost and give you an idea of how much it's going to cost you in order to scale your business off of the Amazon platform. So that's kind of my next phase, training phase. There are other advertising platforms like we discussed. So you could be using Google for this. Google has a smart ad platform for it. I personally have not seen the same return on ad spend on other platforms that I had been seeing on Facebook. And I will say that even after the latest iOS 14 debacles, where there were a lot of issues with Facebook performance, Facebook's performance still was far in excess of what I would see on other platforms for this type of combined full funnel prospecting and retargeting approach that I would do in the training phase. So once that training phase is done, what we then want to do is look at scaling. And so once you've hit that 50 conversions, I think that you're really in a place where scaling is going to be relatively easy. But I think this is where you start to get into those more sophisticated approaches. So what I would do in the 50 conversions phase is I would actually leave it be until you're getting to around 100 conversions a week. And at 100 conversions a week, that's when, and I would just take up your spend until you can get to the point where you're hitting 100 conversions a week. It's hitting your cost per acquisition target or your cost per purchase target. And it's clearly profitable for you. And then at this stage, my recommendation is take a look at splitting out your lower funnel audiences from your top of funnel audiences. And the reason why you would do this at this stage with Facebook is you're trying to push Facebook to spend more of its budget on the broader audiences where people don't know about your brand, because that's going to fuel your funnel long term. So I've got a couple of recommendations around this. The first recommendation is still keep all of your ad sets within one campaign. Turn on campaign budget optimization and let their machine learning figure out, okay, what audience is going to be least expensive in order to generate a purchase at any particular given time. But what you do in order to force it to move up the pyramid, if you will, and go after these broad prospecting audiences is you actually put cost caps on both your broad audience and on your retargeting audience that you're going to create. And we'll talk about the retargeting audience in a bit. And on the retargeting audience, you'll take a cost cap that's lower than your broad audience. So that's going to really encourage Facebook to spend more of your budget on that broad audience. But what's cool here is you've already trained the audience, or you've already trained the pixel. You know how much a cost per purchase should be. And so what this is going to do is it's going to do two things. It's going to make sure that with your broad audience, your cost per purchase is not going to go completely out of whack. And then with your retargeting audience, you're using your cost per purchase from your previous blended audience of prospecting and retargeting in order to say, okay, well, if it was a $20 cost per purchase before, I know based on looking at that a retargeting audience should be a little lower. So I'm going to put it at 16. I'm going to put the broad audience at 24. And then you just use that and iterate on it as time goes on. So in terms of splitting out those audiences and those ad sets, my recommendation is as follows. It's to keep the broad audience on the prospecting side, but on the retargeting side, I think you've got a number of different opportunities. First is when you're doing retargeting, the chances are you're not going to be driving a ton of web visits. If you are driving a ton of web visits and your cost per click was really, really low in your early stages of your Facebook advertising, but you're still not driving a ton of conversions, then what I'm about to say is not necessarily applicable for you. But what I would do is I would define your retargeting audience very broadly. I would put it as engagements, website visits. If your product is the type of product that's not a one-off purchase, I would put past purchasers. And I lump those all into one audience until you get to an even larger point of scale, in which case I would start to fragment those even further. But by doing that, you're still keeping a very, very big audience for Facebook to target. And I would actually look at those in the biggest possible look back window. So that's 180 days, I believe, for Facebook on website visitors. And I believe it's 360 days for Facebook engagers. So use those super broad audiences on the retargeting level in this next phase of scaling, and then drive and wait and see and get it through to its 50 conversions a week for each of those ad sets. Once you're getting to 50 of those per week for each of those ad sets, if you're starting to inch up on 150 conversions across the campaign, that's when you'd want to split up the ad sets again. And again, I would focus on the prospecting audience, and I would see, okay, have you now got enough website visitors that you can peel apart the website visitors from engagers? And therefore your audience structure is simply one of, you've got an ad set for broads, an ad set for engagers, a website and an audience for website visitors. And by doing this and setting cost caps on each of them, and then using campaign budget optimization, Facebook is going to drive as many possible impressions at the best possible price against the audience that's best. And it's going to have done that through algorithmic learning that, again, you just simply cannot do. If you tried to reproduce this on your own, it would be a gargantuan effort. And so that would be kind of the next level of what I would do on the Facebook side. And here is also where I would start to say, okay, well, this is a good opportunity to start leveraging other media tools, because you've also got retargeting underway. So that means that I would look higher up in the funnel with paid search. I'm actually a little more conservative on generic paid search. I'd wait until your website is really converting because it can get super expensive otherwise. But once you're at this stage, I think it's a great time to do that. I would look at smart ads through Google. I would look at other display vehicles. I would look at Bing and a whole host of different other options. And because here you've reached a point where you've got great algorithmic learning on the Facebook side. Hopefully you've already installed those pixels and those pixels have been learning, and those pixels should be able to drive and identify audiences very quickly for you in order to enable you to scale even more. So this entire approach is, I think, one that I've seen work a lot of different times. And the genius of it and the beauty of it is it works particularly well because it's performance-based from the start. So it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's not going to be the marketing guy comes into the office and says, hey, I need $1 million to build your brand off of Amazon. No, it's really start small, iterate fast, and it's repeatable. You can do this day in, day out. And then the other thing is it's really about using in-market learning versus pre-market guessing. And I think that's an incredibly strong attribute of this more agile approach. And I think it's something that, given that you've already built an audience on Amazon, you're leveraging that audience as the seed for these future audiences that you build with tools like Facebook. And then you use that as a seed to build greater audiences with other vehicles. I think it becomes a very powerful proposition, and one that, like I said, is very scalable, very repeatable, and it's performance-based from the start, so it's not super costly. So I hope that's really helpful, and I'd love to hear more from you. So if you've got any questions or would like to make any suggestions, I'd love to hear them in the video comments below. And in the meantime, back to you, Rita. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insightful session, Jamie. This was perhaps my favorite session by far. I love innovation in marketing, and I think it's very important to understand where the future is headed to be prepared for it. So thank you so much for that presentation. And now we're going to understand why your PPC campaigns are costing you so much and how you can make sure that you're not spending too much on your PPC campaigns, especially in Q4. So we have Amy Weiss with us here today, who is going to be talking about why your PPC campaigns are costing you too much, and she's also going to be helping you audit your campaigns as well. So let's welcome Amy.
Thank you, Ria, for the introduction. Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm so excited to talk to you about PPC and your rising PPC costs, especially during this Q4 period where pay-per-click costs are going to be even higher than they normally are. So let's get into it, shall we? All right, let's talk about managing your rising PPC costs during Q4 of 2021. As I mentioned, and Ria mentioned, I'm Amy Weiss from AmazingAtHome.com. All right, our agenda today, we're going to talk first about the rules of overall managing your advertising and advertising costs. And then secondly, we're going to talk about the top 5 reasons that your ACoS is too high. So let's get into the rules. Before I talk about those top 5 reasons your ACoS is too high, let's talk about just general rules for making more sales, for keeping your PPC costs low. The number 1 rule here is to know your product and know how the customer searches for the product. In my program, I call these your page ones. Know the page ones that are most relevant, those medium to long tail keywords that are most relevant for the customer to find your product and choose it. So when you have an idea of what your medium to long tail, very relevant keywords are, you can then optimize your listings for those keywords. You can then check your placement on the page for both your organic placement and your PPC advertisements. Really, if you stay laser focused on those page ones and you look at how you look up against your competition on the page, you're going to do very, very well. The second thing, the rule number 2, is that keywords are expensive. You really need to look at your offer. You need an offer that converts and a strategy to get in front of the right customer with the right advertisements. So what am I talking about here? As I mentioned on your page ones, those page ones that you want to be on, you really want to stand out amongst the competition. So if you're selling, you're going to be selling a very similar product as everybody else is on that page. So how are you standing out? Do you have good reviews? What's your pricing like? What does your main photo look like? Do you have the right keywords in your listing to be the most relevant result when you run that PPC advertisement? Because PPC, your bid placement, your advertising placement goes off of not just how high you bid on that keyword, but also how relevant your product is to that keyword that you're bidding on. So you really want to make sure that not only is your listing super relevant for those page ones that we talked about in rule number 1, but also that your offer stands out. And if you're going to pay for those clicks, that they're going to convert into sales. So really take an objective look at your listing, especially before Q4. Think about what people are shopping for during Q4, where their mindset is at, and make sure that your listing aligns with that. Maybe you want to set up some tiered promotions so you can cross-sell different products. There's lots of different things that you can do, but really look at your offer and look at your page ones and stay laser focused with your advertising on those 2 rules. All right, now let's get into the 5 reasons that your ACoS is too high. The first reason is because you don't have an advertising strategy. You maybe just set up a whole bunch of campaigns and you're not really sure what's going on and they're just spending and you're trying to optimize them, but you don't really have an overall goal in mind. So you always want to start with your end in mind. Think about your goal. Do you want to rank for certain keywords? Do you want to make more sales? Do you want to profit? Maybe you need to kind of lower some of your pricing and work on your organic placement, right? But the bottom line is you need to have a goal and develop a strategy to reach it. If you know that you convert really, really well for a specific keyword, I want you to really look at the real estate on the page for that keyword, those page ones that we talked about. And I want you to think about ad placements that could be really great there. Do you want to be at top of search? Do you want to have a video ad in the middle of the page? Do you want to do a headline search ad? Would you like to do product targeting for every product that shows up on that page? Do you want to be inside their buy box with display ads? Or do you want to do product targeting ads where you show up right underneath their product on the page? Really think about your ad placement and your goal in mind, right? So if you're going to do a relaunch, for example, maybe you ran out of stock and you're going to do a relaunch. You got to revisit the rules, right? What is your page one that you want to get back on after that relaunch? Is your offer still good? And what's your plan to get back to that page one? So always think about your goal, start with the end in mind, and develop your ad strategy to match. The same ad strategy that you used at launch time is not necessarily going to work for other goals. So you really need to think about your placement, your goal, and how those things align. Take the time to really plan and then look at your campaigns and see if they're in line with your goal. The second reason that your ACoS is too high is because you're not optimizing your campaigns. I see people come to me all the time and they'll say, I'm just spending way too much money on advertising, Amy. I'm not really sure what to do. And so many people just turn off keywords instead of actually optimizing them, or they'll turn off entire campaigns because they say, oh my gosh, I spent so much money and I just can't get it back, right? So you really just need to optimize your campaigns. Think of all that great data that you got. Look at the keywords that are doing well. So how are some basics? I'm gonna give you some basic rules for campaign optimization. Number one, pull up your campaigns and sort by spend. Look at what keywords are running away with your budget and lower them a little bit at a time. Next, don't turn them off. So many people turn them off, and then your ad isn't showing at all. You have to think about how customers shop, right? If you just turn off all your keywords and turn off all your ads, that's not going to do it for you. I want you to optimize, lower them a little bit at a time, and make sure that you're not making decisions based off of just one click, right? So secondly, sort by ACoS. What keywords need more money on them and which should be reduced? If you have a 1 or 2 or 3 or 7% ACoS on a keyword and you're getting sales, why not check your placement on that keyword and see where your ad is showing up? And if it's not awesome placement and you're already making sales, why not try raising that bid and see if you can't maximize that ACoS even more and get even more conversions from that? Right? So if you have a super low ACoS, check your placement. If you have a super high ACoS, lower your bid. And sometimes I also check my placement. If I check my placement and I'm at the top of the page for that keyword and it's really, really an expensive conversion, then I'll take a look at it and say, all right, I'm at top of search for this keyword. Why am I not converting? And then I go back to my rules and I look at my offer and I make sure that my offer is good. All right, the third thing is consider your placement and relevancy when adjusting your bids. So as I mentioned, if I'm at the top of the page and I'm not converting, I'm going to check my offer out before, and I'm going to look at that keyword too and make sure that it's super relevant, right? And then lastly, optimize your listings for relevancy. We talked about that in a few slides ago. We talked about optimizing your listings for relevancy. So you really want to get after that and make sure you're super relevant for your keywords, because that's going to improve your placement. All right, number 3 reason is that you are not using the correct targeting techniques in your ads. So you're either too narrow, too broad, or you have too many keywords in a campaign. So for example, maybe you're only targeting exact matches. I see this all the time. So if you're only targeting exact matches, that means your ads are only showing up for that exact keyword. So if a customer types in, let's say you're targeting blue water bottle exact match, and the customer types in water bottle blue, well, your ad isn't showing up. So if I'm your competitor and I cast a wider net and use other match types, I'm going to be able to capture all those pages and all those searches that you're not showing up for. So just be really careful about only using exact matches. I'm seeing a lot of people doing this and they're really missing out. And many times a phrase match or even a broad match will convert better and at a lower cost than an exact match. So definitely look at your techniques there. And then not using product targeting. If you have a really competitive product, especially, you want to use product targeting. You want to target either substitute products or complementary products so that you can make more sales. Product targeting is great because your listing doesn't necessarily need to be relevant, right? So if I'm selling water bottles for bikes and I really want to sell to people who are buying a certain bike that my water bottle fits, I can use product targeting to get in front of that audience. I can target that bike instead of having to worry about optimizing my listing for the bike, right? So product targeting is a really great technique to use. Definitely dig into it if you haven't used it yet. Not using registered brand ads would be the next thing. I see so many people that are registered brands and they don't use any of the registered brand ad types. I mean, these are video ads. These are your headline search ads. You can use display ads and get in your competitor's buy box area. Like, why wouldn't you be using these? Because they're much lower costs because there's not as many people bidding on those inside of those ad campaigns, and you can definitely convert at a much higher rate because you get better placement with registered brand ads. So make sure you're taking advantage of those. The last thing I want to point out here is using too many keywords in a single campaign. Have you ever noticed how you'll be running out of budget, but half of your keywords aren't even getting impressions? Make sure that if that's happening, that you're using a smaller amount of keywords in each campaign so that your budget has a chance to spread across multiple keywords. Instead of the most relevant keyword getting all the impressions and then the rest of your campaigns not going anywhere. All right, the number 4 reason your ACoS is too high is your campaign organization. If you're disorganized, it's really, really hard to manage your campaigns. So do you have too many campaigns and no campaign organization? Utilize your portfolios within your campaign manager. Maybe you're not tracking changes between your optimization sessions. So maybe you just optimized that bid 2 weeks ago, but you're not checking things enough, or you didn't really track what you did last time, and now you're optimizing it again, thinking, oh my gosh, that's overspending, right? So really, I love to take little screenshots. For the first couple of weeks that I'm optimizing a campaign, I'll take little screenshots. I use a tool called Greenshot, and I'll look at, okay, this campaign's doing this is what's happening, and these are the changes that I made. And then once I get in the habit of it, then I know what I'm doing with that campaign and what I'm tracking, and it's much easier. But in the beginning, I definitely track all my changes so that as I go back through and optimize the campaign again, it's very easy to check on those things. The other thing is not using your search term reports or tracking performance between your campaigns. So a lot of people have so many campaigns and they have the same keywords in multiple campaigns. but they don't understand whether, for example, phrase match is converting better in this campaign versus exact match in this campaign, because they're not looking at the data across all their campaigns. So make sure that you're either downloading your search term reports and using those Excel filters to look across your campaigns and see what's performing where. And then managing your budget. Running out of budget is a problem. If you need to spend more, if you're converting well and your ACoS is at a reasonable level, you need to make sure that you increase your budget on those campaigns. So don't run out of budget when you first start your campaigns. And that comes with, making sure that you're not putting too many keywords in a single campaign, that you know what your budget is. You can utilize budget caps. If you're budgeting out very quickly, you can use budget caps across all of your campaigns and your campaign settings. There's a lot of different things that you could do, but make sure that you're managing your budget appropriately. And then finally, blindly using software. There's nothing wrong with using software, but so many people blindly use software. And the problem with software is that it just kind of corrects everything to one standard, and it doesn't look at what your goal was for that campaign or how relevant that keyword is to your listing. It's just kind of like, oh, nope, go ahead and, so you might be missing a lot of opportunities. What I like to do is use software, but also do some manual spot checking so that I really can see what's going on between my campaigns and my goals. All right, the last reason that your ACoS is too high is that you do not have an external traffic strategy. So ads off of Amazon are generally cheaper and also help you rank. As I mentioned earlier, the average cost per click on Amazon continues to rise. It's over $1 now. So if you don't have any type of external traffic strategy, you're really going to end up spending even more, because when you're running external traffic to Amazon, Amazon's algorithm really loves it and it'll rank your product because they feel like, hey, you're sending traffic to Amazon. So if you're only using on Amazon PPC, you're missing out. 60% of external traffic off of Amazon comes from search. So 89%, I think, of search is owned by Google. So if you're not doing anything on Google, if your ads and your listings aren't optimized for Google, if you're not running any type of Google ads, nothing like that, if you're not doing any blogs or anything where your website or your product is ranking or has backlinks that break across Google, you're missing out on a ton of people who are going to Google looking for products like yours. We do Google ads and we love it. It really does well for our products. Organic social media posts. Even if you don't want to pay for Facebook ads, you have so much organic opportunity across YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram. Get out there and put some posts out there on social media that are leading back to your product, to your brand. Really get the word out there, and that's going to help you with external traffic. Using referral sites like coupons, deal news, coupon sites, rebate sites. Those are also a really great way to keep external traffic going to your listing. Deal news, for example, is one of the highest refers to Amazon. So you can set up an ad right there and bring attention. If you're running a Q4 deal, you can bring attention to your ad, right? So check that out. And then don't forget about media opportunities and backlinks. So there's a lot of media outlets. You can do press releases, tons of stuff where you can get your products on top 10 lists, everything like that. And that is going to bring you that traffic for a long, long time. So check out some different external traffic channels. You don't have to do all of them at once. Add one every quarter or something and just kind of work on it. And before you know it, you're going to have quite a bit of a really great web footprint. All right. So that's really all I have for you. I hope that this has been super, super helpful for you and that you can use some of these techniques to get a handle on your PPC costs and really master your sales during Q4. And if you need any help with your strategy, you can always book a call with me at amazingathome.com/coach. Thank you so much.
Amy, it's such a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much for that presentation, and I think I always learn a lot from you whenever you come to our sessions and speak. So thank you so much for that presentation. So I hope you guys know why your PPC campaigns are costing you too much, and I hope you made notes as well. Again, if you haven't registered for the event yet, make sure you do because we have limited seats remaining. And of course, people who registered for the event get additional perks such as workshops and goodie bags. at the end of the event. Let us know what you think of the event till now in the comment section below. Leave all your questions down there and we will answer them, or the experts who are speaking are going to be answering them as well. Moving on, we have our in-house specialist Nithin Mentreddy, who's going to be talking about how you can structure your PPC campaigns in a way that's going to cost you lesser money in Q4. We're going to be talking about automation, ACoS, and so much more. So I think this is a very important session today and pay close attention to it.
Thank you so much, Ria. Welcome everyone to the Amazon Q4 Mastery Session Day 3. I'm Nithin Mentreddy and I head the customer success team here at SellerApp. So today we'll be talking about how to optimize your campaigns to achieve the ideal ACoS. So before getting into that, I'm Nithin. I've been working with SellerApp for a couple of years now. I have a total of experience of 10 years starting my own company and then understanding the nitty-gritties of running a business. And here right now in this role, I help businesses grow along with us over here. So the first thing, why should someone advertise on Amazon? So you've got your product, you're selling on Amazon, but why is it important to sell on Amazon? So the bottom line of any business is to increase your top line sales. So advertising helps you increase your sales. It increases your visibility of the product and improves the reach that your product has on Amazon. So typically there are a couple of things that we need to understand with respect to the kind of ads that are there on Amazon. So we try to reach out to different audience types, and depending on there are different stages of audience who log into Amazon and who search for products on Amazon. So we kind of bucket them under the awareness, interest, consideration, evaluation, and the purchase stage. So these are different stages depending on how interested they are and what stage of buying a customer is on. So depending on these criteria, there are 3 types of advertising options that Amazon has provided to the customers. In this case, the sellers like you, right? So you have something called the sponsored product ad, sponsored brand ad, and sponsored display ads. These different kind of ads can be utilized to reach different types of audiences and different categories of audiences. So probably to give you a little more explanation on that, awareness, when you're looking at targeting awareness, so during the awareness stage, we are looking at improving the brand awareness of your product, improving the visibility and reach of your product to different audience types, to people who probably would be considering or they do not have an idea of your product. So you can use brand ads and display ads for this, where you can specifically target set types of audiences, and we'll probably go a little in depth about what you can do with these different types of ads. But the idea is you create brand ads and display ads to reach out to the awareness section of the audience who are purchasing on Amazon. Then you move on to creating some brand video ads to target the interested and consideration stage of consumers. And the sponsored product advertisements are specifically more used to reach specific target audience types, where you target specific keywords, specific product targeting, where the intent of a buyer over there is to buy the product. And typically sponsored product ads has a higher intent of reaching out to customers who have a purchasing intent. Now we've spoken about sponsored product ad, brand ads, and the different types of advertising. What are these specifically? How do these specific types of ads help a seller like us, right? So when you're launching a sponsored product ads, the idea is to reach out and boost your sales, and most of any advertising is going to help you boost your sales. So when you're talking about sponsored product advertising, it comes up on the top of the search page. It has got a lot of positions, a lot of real estate is dedicated towards the sponsored product ads, right, on Amazon. So it helps you boost your sales, promote it. You can use it to gain visibility for new products, and it is also ideal to clear out your inventory, because your product is right there on the search pages where people would engage with your product, and the intention is to buy your product through these product ads, because when you click on a product ad, they directly come onto your display page itself. Then you have your sponsored brand ads. Now this is a beautiful ad because it is otherwise called as the headline or the banner ad. Why is it called the headline banner ad? Because when a customer searches for a product on Amazon, it's right there as a banner on the search page. So this helps drive a lot of awareness to your brand itself. You have a lot of creative customization options that will allow you to ensure the customer interacts either with your product itself, or probably to also divert them to your storefront on Amazon, where they get to interact and engage with the entire catalog of products that you have. So it is a great way to divert attention from other products that are there on the search pages to just the entire catalog that you have to offer. So this not only helps increase and boost your sales of the particular product that the customer is looking for, but it also helps in increasing the awareness category of purchasers who now get to interact with the other products that you have to offer on your storefront. Then you have the sponsored display ads. So display ads is a fantastic feature where you get to target specific audiences. So there are multiple types of audience sets that you can reach out. You can use it as a remarketing tool where you can reach out to customers who already interacted with your product in the past, or you can also reach out to people who have purchased your product in the past. Apart from that, Amazon has this amazing audiences already categorized within their system. So you can specifically target unique audience types that are related to your product. Let's say, for example, you have a Christmas gift. So you have an audience type that has an intent of Christmas buying option. So you can click on that particular audience set, and Amazon decides to showcase your ad to those customers. And this is beautiful to increase the awareness to consumers. And the best part about display advertising is you get the option of allowing Amazon to showcase your product on and off Amazon, which goes a long way to improve the awareness of your product again. And that is the first key thing, right? Display ads improves the awareness of your product. It reaches out to customers who probably are not even aware that they need that product. And that is the whole idea of marketing, to ensure people know your product is available on Amazon, and then of course take them through the funnel to end up buying the product. Now, once we know what these different types of advertising is, we need to really understand, this is something that I'd like to talk about, why it is important to continue optimizing campaigns. Many a times clients assume that it is just a one-time activity. You create an automatic campaign, for example, and you create these campaigns with a beautiful structure. You have the keywords targeted, the products targeted, and it's just left like that. Now, that is not the best way to optimize campaigns, because there is a concept called the flywheel effect. This is related to the Amazon's ecosystem, where so the whole idea for advertising is to ensure your product is right at the top of the search. And not only that, it also is to increase and improve your organic position on the search pages, which is absolutely important, because there is a point in time where you need to have your organic sales driving a majority of your total revenue that's coming from Amazon. So when someone purchases the product on Amazon, it improves your score within the Amazon ecosystem, and your BSR, or the bestseller rank, is affected by this. So it gets improving as and when you get continuous sales and the momentum is continuous. You have your ratings and reviews that keep coming in at a consistent pace. Your BSR gets improved as all these metrics are in place. Now, when that happens, you continuously keep getting a lot of data from here. So when you create a campaign, your sales are increased, and then your reviews and ranking improves, and then you get more organic ranking. And at some point in time, you have all this data which can further be used to optimize your campaigns, which will again further drive more audiences towards your product. Now that we spoke about the flywheel effect and the types of campaigns that can be created on Amazon, I'll be talking about what is one of the key metric that needs to be tracked or observed, or the key metric that kind of tells you the performance of your campaigns on Amazon. So ACoS, otherwise called as the advertising cost of sales, is one of the key metrics that helps you identify the performance of your campaigns, of your ad campaigns. It's a simple ratio of your ad spend and the revenue it generated. And that is all it is. So the lower the ACoS, the better. But however, it is important to understand and set the ideal ACoS. So not all sellers or not all clients would have a lower ACoS as the target, because that may not be the target for your account. Depending on the scale of your business, depending on what your objective is to run the campaigns, your ACoS targets could be a little different. So let's say you are already selling on Amazon and you've got a continuous sales, and the campaigns have been running for a while, and you would now look at increasing the profitability of those campaigns. So that is when you would look at optimizing the campaigns to reduce the ACoS. And let's say now you launch a new product, and obviously you need to again create these campaigns to improve the awareness. You might have to spend a little more on reaching newer audiences and have these marketing campaigns created and which would end up spending a little more than you would be comfortable. So when you're looking at increasing the visibility and volume, a higher ACoS would be an ideal target to be set for these campaigns. Now that we know what are the kind of advertisements that you've created and the ACoS, the next thing is the most important thing about today's presentation: how to bring down that ACoS and how to reach your ideal ACoS. I think the most fundamental thing that will really go a long way in controlling your ACoS and making sure that you reach your ideal ACoS targets is to have a beautiful campaign in terms of the structure. And structuring your campaigns is absolutely important because it gives you control on different metrics at different levels and different stages of your account's growth. So the key things to keep in mind when you're structuring the campaign is to understand and group your products in the right campaigns and the right ad groups. So you know that there are specific keywords targeting specific products in those specific ad groups and campaigns. This will go a long way in helping you scale your business and have a definite control on what is happening on the accounts and where is it that you are spending your money. This will help you analyze, slice and dice the data at a later stage when you create the structure from the day one. Once you have the structure of the campaigns ready, the next important thing to reduce the ACoS is to optimize your campaigns. Bid optimization is quite time consuming, and it takes a lot of efforts in optimizing the bids at every keyword level in the different ad groups and campaigns you've got out there. And entering the Q4 season, it becomes critical to save as much time as possible to then focus on other aspects like inventory planning. And by the way, we have a session tomorrow on the inventory planning where you can learn about how to plan for the Q4 season. Now, that being said, we at SellerApp have developed an automation tool that will give the control to the sellers in optimizing the campaigns. While optimizing, when we talk about PPC automation, typically there are two things that come into mind. One is to optimize, keep changing the bids, which is otherwise called as the bid automation, and also to add new keywords into existing campaigns and ad groups. So these are the two primary things that we've taken into mind and developed the features where we've created templates that will help you set up the right rule for the set goals that you have in your account. So if you're looking at improving the visibility of the product, there are certain templates that will help you increase the bids to reach those targets. If you're looking at reducing the ACoS, again, there are set templates that will help you reduce the bids and therefore reduce the ACoS. Now that being said, why is it so important? Because it helps save a lot of time. Like I mentioned earlier, it is quite time consuming to work on campaigns, and it is quite intensive when you have a lot of campaigns, especially for medium to larger sized accounts. So this amount of time that you save by creating and setting up these rules at your where you have the control in defining the goals for each campaign gives you a lot of time on hand to then spend and focus on the other aspects of your business. It could be, like I mentioned earlier, inventory planning for the Q4 season, or also in the future to develop new products that you can continue and expanding your business on Amazon. So that kind of brings us to the end of this session. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us by writing an email to support@sellerapp.com, and we would be there to answer those questions and support you with growing your business. Thank you guys, and over to you, Ria.
Thank you so much for that insightful session, Nithin. I can see how much experience you have in Amazon advertising already, and this just makes listening to you even more wonderful. So thank you so much for that session, and of course check the description box below for PDFs that's going to help you and assist you in your Amazon journey. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to do that too. And that was it for day 3. Let's have a quick recap. So first, we spoke about innovation in marketing, future of marketing, and how Amazon advertising is moving away from the platform. And the session was conducted by Jamie. Then we had a session on why your PPC campaigns are costing you too much by Amy Weiss. And then we had our in-house specialist Nithin Mentreddy come and tell you how you can structure your campaigns for maximum profits. So here's a little sneak peek of what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow is all about inventory management. We have again 3 amazing speakers who are going to be briefing you about inventory guidelines, reimbursements, and amazing tips which you all need to understand for inventory for Q4, because the deadlines are approaching and this is a session that you really need to watch before it's too late. So I will see you all tomorrow, and until the next time, happy selling.